Marble steps are cool at dawn. Olive leaves still hold the night. Smoke is curling slow and thin. Names I whisper to the light. Sing, oh, sing to the stones and sky. Let the old words rise. Let the old words rise. Feet on earth and eyes held high.
Hvad så, folkens? Welcome back to another video. Today we are heading into part 3 of Caesar vs. Pompey. So, let's go.
A couple of days after this engagement, sometime in June, Caesar arrived at the camp with his bodyguard. Fabius, despite the prior engagement, had fulfilled his duties well. He had pushed through the Pyrenees, established a foothold, and kept Afranius in place until Caesar arrived. Nonetheless, Caesar quickly took control of the situation, finishing the repairs on the first bridge started by Fabius, and then going on the offensive. Leaving just 500 men in the first Fabian camp, Caesar marched the rest of his force nearer the town of Ilerda, offering battle to Afranius. Afranius did bring his force out of camp, but held them on the high ground, refusing to attack. He was no fool, and could not sacrifice his strong position. Seeing that Afranius would not be drawn into a pitched battle, Caesar deployed his legions in 3 lines just 200 meters from Afranius's camp. The first 2 acted as a screen, whilst the back line dug trenches as the start of a fortified camp. The plan worked, and Caesar's force was able to retreat behind these defences for the night. The next day he expanded on the defences, assigning 1 legion to each side of the camp, the other 3 acting as a defensive line. Afranius tried to use his force to harass the workers, but Caesar's 3 defensive legions were able to prevent them from doing any real damage. With the camp now fully fortified, Caesar ordered the 500 men and baggage from the Fabian camp to join him in the new camp. Caesar soon noted a mound between Afranius's camp and Ilerda, and determined to take and fortify it, thereby cutting off Afranius from the supplies in the town. Starving out an enemy by such tactics was a favoured strategy of Caesar, and he had tried something very similar at Gergovia against Vercingetorix. Gathering 3 legions, the 9th, 14th, and likely the 10th, he drew them up for battle. Caesar first sent the vanguard of the 14th to charge the mound, hoping to take it quickly and hold it while the rest of Caesar's legions followed up in good order. However, Afranius was quick to react, sending his own force to charge the mound. Afranius's men gained the top first, and with the advantage of the high ground, forced the men of the 14th to retreat back to their standards. Afranius reinforced his men and attempted to push his advantage, chasing Caesar's men and beginning to push the now shaken 14th Legion on Caesar's right flank. Caesar himself notes how fiercely Afranius's men fought. Long campaigns against the Iberian tribes had made these men battle-hardened and fierce fighters who fought in a looser formation than Caesar's legions. Caesar's right flank began slowly giving ground, the 14th attempting to retreat to higher ground. Seeing his line on the brink of breaking, Caesar ordered the 9th Legion to support his right flank, pushing back the Pompeian forces. The Pompeians quickly retreated to a stronger defensive location, taking up positions on the high ground outside the walls of Ilerda. The 9th Legion, thinking the Pompeians were routing, pursued them, but quickly found themselves caught in a precarious situation. The slope of the hill that Ilerda was situated on was narrow, funneling the 9th and exposing them to a hail of missiles from the Pompeians on the high ground. The fighting was bitter, with each force sending reinforcing cohorts to refresh the front lines. For 5 hours the 2 forces struggled on the slope below the town. In a last bid to salvage the situation, Caesar ordered his infantry to charge the lines, pushing over the crest of the slope and forcing the Pompeians against the walls of the city.
Nice.
With the crest of the slope gained, Caesar's cavalry was finally allowed room to maneuver and charged between the forces, allowing Caesar's legions to retreat in good order to their camp. In Caesar's account, he portrays this as a draw, saying 70 of his men died with 600 wounded, compared to 200 Pompeians dead. The reality is that Caesar lost the day.
Yeah.
Given the situation that Caesar's legions were fighting in, and their need to retreat, it is far more likely that Caesar's men suffered more casualties. Moreover, Caesar had failed to take the mound as he had originally hoped. Indeed, by the end of the day, the Pompeians held and fortified the mound. This was Caesar's first fight against other Roman legions. He had underestimated them, overcommitted his forces, and paid the consequences.
Yeah. Damn.
Caesar's situation then continues to worsen. A second storm brought a huge flood down the river, destroying both the bridges constructed by himself and Fabius. Caesar was cut off from his supply line, and the supplies he did have were dwindling. Afranius, on the other hand, had an abundance of supplies he had collected in Ilerda prior to Fabius's arrival, as well as control of the Ilerdan stone bridge. Caesar did have supplies, and almost 6,000 auxiliary reinforcements of archers and cavalry en route from Gaul. But with control of the bridge, Afranius was able to send 3 legions to attack them, killing 200 and forcing the rest to make camp on high ground. Caesar's campaign in Spain seemed to be on the edge of disaster. He was stuck in the middle of enemy territory, cut off from his almost 6,000 auxiliary reinforcements.
Yeah, he's kind of trapped in Spain right now, and Pompey can just invade Italy whenever he wants. This is a really bad situation for him. Damn. How is he getting out of this?
And the precious supplies they were bringing, and was days from being starved out. If he was to reclaim the situation, Caesar would need to take control of the eastern bank of the river Sicoris and secure his supply line. With the bridges unable to be repaired due to high water and marauding Pompeian forces, Caesar came up with a different plan. He began construction of several small boats of the kind he had seen in Brittany, made of lightweight timber and animal hides. He then ordered a small detachment to take these boats by wagon at night almost 34 kilometers up the river. These men then crossed the river, fortifying a small hill, giving Caesar a small foothold on the eastern bank. Once this was established, a legion was sent from the main Caesarian camp up the river to construct a bridge from the western bank, while the initial detachment assisted from the eastern bank. Within days of beginning, they had the bridge constructed, providing a route between the eastern bank and Caesar's camp, stabilizing his supply line.
It's still pretty insane to me to see like how quick the Romans, especially Caesar, can just make new like buildings and bridges, and yeah, they work really fast with this. Like the Romans' technology and like engineering is absolutely insane.
And allowing the reinforcements from Gaul to meet up with his legion encamped on the west side. With this influx of troops, particularly the prized Gallic cavalry, Caesar was finally able to harass Pompeian foraging parties on the eastern bank and begin to regain control of the situation. While the Ilerdan campaign was underway, the siege of Massilia was still being fought. For the most part, the siege had thus far been uneventful. Ahenobarbus had largely spent his time amassing a larger navy, and the Romans had been building siege equipment while Brutus's ships blockaded the port. But once his fleet was suitably built up, Ahenobarbus sailed his force out of harbour, hoping to break the blockade and thus bring supplies into the city. He had managed to put together a force of 17 warships, as well as several smaller vessels manned by archers, against Brutus's 12. The Massilian ships were also lighter and more navigable compared to the rather cumbersome ships that the legions had built. However, Brutus did have the advantage in quality of fighters. Ahenobarbus's men were largely farmers and local Massilians pressed into service, alongside allied archers, while Brutus's ships were crewed by legionaries who had specifically volunteered for the task. If Brutus could catch Ahenobarbus in close quarters fighting, the battle would be his. As the fleets met, the Massilians used their agility and range to their advantage, circling the Caesarian ships and peppering them with missiles, or sailing past to sweep Brutus's decks with arrows and smash his oars. But when the Massilians got too close in this manner, the legionaries would throw across grappling hooks, pulling the Massilian ships in close, holding them fast and boarding them. In these situations, the legions had a clear advantage. Their heavy armor and training allowed them to cut through the Massilians on board, on occasion even boarding 2 Massilian ships at once, one on either side. Though Caesar notes the bravery of the Massilians, they were simply not equipped to fight hand-to-hand with legionnaires like this. The Massilians were forced back into port, having lost more than half their ships, and the blockade continued.
So they are mainly just maybe...
This victory at Massilia coincided with a continuous change of fortune at Ilerda. With the new bridge completed, Caesar's superior Gallic horsemen were able to harass the Pompeian foragers, and were even able to force them to resort to foraging at night. The odds were turning in Caesar's favour. As a result, numerous local tribes began supporting him with grain, as well as some more auxiliaries. Seeking to apply even more pressure to Afranius, he began construction of a number of ditches to divert the river Sicoris and create a ford close to his camp, which would allow even more of his men easy access to the eastern bank, rather than taking the circuitous route to the bridge up the river, thus completely removing the Pompeians' chances of foraging. Afranius recognized how precarious his situation was becoming. Running out of food, and with local tribes pledging allegiance to Caesar threatening to surround his position, he decided to make a tactical withdrawal to further Spain, to continue the fight on his own terms, with the advantage of Varro's 2 extra legions. Afranius ordered a few ships on the river Ebro to construct a pontoon bridge 30 miles to the south, providing an escape route. At the same time, Afranius ordered 2 legions across the stone bridge to the eastern bank, establishing a fortified position in preparation for the evacuation of the rest of the army. When Caesar learned of this, he saw his opportunity to catch Afranius. He ordered his men to work day and night on the riverworks, managing to lower the water level enough to move his cavalry across the Sicoris to try and harass the Pompeians. However, the Pompeian legions had been quick and were already dug in, leaving little for the cavalry to do. Afranius then moved his full force across the Sicoris into the new camp, leaving just 2 auxiliary cohorts to garrison Ilerda itself. In the early hours of the following morning, Afranius and Petreius began moving their entire army out of camp and to the south, heading towards the Ebro and the pontoon bridge. Caesar needed to act fast. If the Pompeians could reach the pontoon bridge, they would be able to escape to further Spain, merging with Varro's legions and prolonging the Spanish campaign. He first sent his cavalry to harass the Pompeians, attacking the rear of their column, slowing the Pompeian legions to a crawl as they fended off the attackers. Though the ford was not wholly completed, Caesar ordered pack animals to wade into the river to help slow the current, and marched 5 of his legions across, leaving 1 to guard the camp. Taking these legions, Caesar marched quickly to try and cut off his enemy's escape, and, thanks to the harassment of the Caesarian cavalry, by mid-afternoon his army had caught up with the Pompeian legions. Both armies were now camped on the eastern bank, the Pompeians slightly further south than the Caesarians. Scouts for both sides reported that the only way south to the Ebro was through the mountain passes, just under 8 kilometers away. Whoever controlled these passes would easily be able to defend them from the other, and a brief standoff ensued. Afranius did not want to risk attempting to march his army through the narrow defiles with Caesar pursuing him, and Caesar did not want to try and force a way through the Pompeians to the mountains. Afranius did consider attempting a night march to the mountains, but decided that, with Caesar's cavalry patrolling the area at night, they would quickly be found out. Night battles were extremely risky and difficult, and so Afranius decided that it was better instead to attempt a fighting retreat the next day. Caesar, meanwhile, had also concocted a plan. At first light, he feigned a withdrawal to the Sicoris and Ilerda, then rapidly changed direction, marching quickly for the mountains. Seeing this maneuver, the Pompeians immediately broke camp, racing towards the mountain passes. The Caesarian route was a harder march, with the terrain slowing down the legions, but the Pompeian forces found themselves constantly harassed by Caesar's cavalry, and this proved once again to be the difference. Caesar reached the passes first, drawing his army into a line, cutting off the Pompeian escape.
This is gonna be
Afranius
slaughter.
tried sending light auxiliaries to quickly seize high ground ahead of his main force, but the Caesarian cavalry was quickly able to surround them, and without support, they were easily cut down. With his opportunity to escape cut off, Afranius saw little choice but to encamp on a small hill and contemplate his next move.
Why did Caesar not engage with him, and why is the cavalry retreating back? Like, they could have surrounded them.
Caesar was happy to let him do so, and saw no point in risking the lives of his men in another battle. With the road south now blocked, it would only be a matter of time before Afranius ran out of food and water. The Pompeians could try and retreat back to Ilerda, but Caesar's legion left in the camp would be able to cross the ford and block the stone bridge, whilst Caesar's main force could attack them from behind. If the Pompeians stayed, they would eventually run out of supplies. If they retreated, they would be caught in a pincer. Caesar fortified his position, setting up outposts in the mountains, and awaited his enemy's next move. Afranius's priority was to secure his water supply. He had sent men to the river to gather water, but they had faced constant harassment from the Caesarian cavalry. In response, his legions had built a rampart from his camp to the river, allowing his men to collect water from behind the defences, bringing the fighting to a pause. As the Caesarian troops also came to the river for water, men from both sides began talking to each other. Caesar's legions contained many Iberians, and they began to ask the Pompeian legions about family, friends, and discuss the politics of the war. Old friends and acquaintances from both sides met, bringing them back to their camps to drink and reconnect. Some of Afranius's Spanish allies, and even some officers, went over to Caesar's camp to speak with Caesar personally. Caesar attributes these actions to his not having committed to a full-pitched battle the day prior, and that the Pompeians saw this as an act of leniency. While this might be true to an extent, the main motivator was more likely that the Pompeian forces understood the situation they were in. It was only a matter of time before they would be starved into defeat, and they were losing the will to fight. Afranius did little to quell such stirrings. It seems that he too had lost the desire to continue the battle. Petreius, however, had not. To restore discipline in the camp, he demanded oaths of loyalty from Afranius and the entire army, and then ordered any Caesarian soldier found in the camp to be executed. There had been a brief moment of peace in the chaos of the civil war, where men who just the day before had been fighting each other had come together in peace. But now the peace was broken. The soldiers returned to their respective camps and prepared once again for battle.
Alright, this is part 3. Damn. Okay, it was pretty interesting to see like the soldiers kind of got along and like was talking to each other and stuff like that. Yeah. Whew. Yeah, I do think Caesar should have engaged in battle though, but yeah. It would have been pretty good for him though if the soldiers, the Pompeian soldiers, had joined him, but it doesn't seem that many will right now. So yeah. Plus, like the Pompeian soldiers does have better chances of getting reinforcements because there are so many forces in Spain. So yeah, Caesar is not exactly on an extremely good position right now. Plus, Pompey can still invade Italy. I still don't get why he doesn't though. Like, he really should. Like, how many soldiers are left in Italy right now? Not that many probably. So, yeah. Alright, the original video will be down in the description, guys. If you guys want to check out some more history videos, I will have a playlist up on screen. Otherwise, see you guys later. Bye.
Bare feet in the furrowed ground, dust on my tongue, heat bearing down, sun like a hammer on my back, name I was born with, they took that. But my chains flow soft like water, running through this tired soul. You can bind my hands together, you can't cage what rivers know.